Hello, welcome back to the channel. We are in the midst of our 30-day challenge to spend just 15 minutes in the garden. So today is my 15 minutes to get my fertilizing done. I do this about once a month. I used to have to do it about every 2 weeks until I really started to focus on my soil health. And once I was able to focus on my soil health and really put back a lot of the organic nutrients back into the soil, I did have to fertilize a lot. And I don't want to discourage you, because when you start a new bed and you're working on your soil health, it will usually require you to have a heavier hand in fertilizing, but eventually you will get to a place where you may never have to fertilize, or where you will just have to minimally fertilize. I'm going to show you today all the products that I use for a fertilizer. So there's several products I use for fertilizing, and they all have a different purpose. So all of them do have a recognized NPK, that's a nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium level. And you're usually going to see that somewhere on the front of the package, or like with these Epsons, they have them on the side of the package. So you're not going to be able to see that very well because it's right there, but on the side of the package, this tomato tone has a 3-4-6. What that means is it's 3 parts of the nitrogen, 4 of the phosphorus, and then 6 of the potassium. I like this tomato tone as a general fertilizer. Now, if I'm just doing tomatoes, potatoes, anything where it's a fruiting crop like cucumbers, squash, I will put this down into the hole that I put the plant in, and then I almost never apply fertilizer again for those. Another one that I used probably more in the past than what I use now is called bone meal. This is a real popular one. This one is very heavy phosphorus, and the problem for me is I've had my beds tested and all of them are extremely high in phosphorus. So I honestly have not used this for some time. Hey, Bell Bell. Hi. Hi, baby. You checking? No, they love the organic fertilizers. The dogs love it. You're so hot. So I had a heavy hand with the bone meal when I first started, and I think that has caused my beds to have a heavy amount of phosphorus. So I actually don't use it anymore. But what I got as a new addition, I just got this one probably maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and I'm very pleased with it so far. A Neptune's Harvest kelp meal. I usually stick with, I never know how to pronounce this, Epsima or Neptune's Harvest. These are my 2 favorite products. But the kelp meal has a higher potassium. My beds were a little bit low in scoring in nitrogen and very low in potassium. So I've got this kelp meal, and its numbers on the front there you can see is 102. So 1 nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, which is what I need because I have too much in my beds, and 2 potassium, which I also need. The third one that I use quite often is blood meal. This one is a 12-00. That means it has 12 nitrogen. That is a high nitrogen feed. I usually use blood meal for my plants that are green plants. Think like green leafy plants, your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts, your kale, karobi, lettuces, spinaches. They love nitrogen. They don't necessarily need the phosphorus and the potassium as much as maybe some of the fruiting plants do or the root crops do, but they really, really love nitrogen. So I always keep blood meal on hand. And this is the first time I've used this particular brand, this high yield, but it seems to be doing very well. Every time I switch over my beds from season to season, which is usually 3 times, I do a fall season, a spring season, and a summer season. During the summer, I almost use 0 fertilizer because most of what I grow is plants that don't necessarily need fertilizing, like beans and peas. They don't really need it. Maybe a little bit right at the beginning, and that I'll use a fish fertilizer. But for my fall and my spring vegetables, or fall all the way to spring because we grow through the winter here, do a full bed fertilizer, not just with this, not just with this, not just with this, but I actually pull these guys out. I got these from Whitwam Organics, and these are the micronutrients. So everything we've spoken up to now is the macronutrients, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But then you've got to get into some of the micronutrients. That's going to have things like calcium, magnesium. It has all of those additional vitamins and minerals that plants need, kind of like what you would see on your multivitamin. So your multivitamin is going to have, you know, your proteins and your calciums and potassiums and things, but then they're going to get down into like vitamin A, B, C, D, and all of those things. Well, I like to think of these as those little mini vitamins that we sometimes don't look at but still need. So I've got a lot of organic material in my beds, and I have a lot of worms and a lot of bug activity that goes on there, so I know that it's healthy. But I like to add these guys in there at the start of the fall, and then towards the beginning of spring. So I do it 2 times a year. These are a liquid fertilizer. They're more of an amendment than they are a fertilizer. I wouldn't necessarily use these guys strictly as a fertilizer, but I like to add them in at the start of those 2 seasons to really give it a boost. So we're going to get started with this bed and make our way down. I'm going to be using different products for different beds because different beds scored differently when I did their last soil test, and also I'm growing specific things in certain beds that I'm not growing in all the beds, so I'm really taking this plant by plant. Most of the time when it's my once a month treatment, I just grab this guy and I throw this in there. That is my easiest. I just toss it throughout the whole bed. But because I'm doing something special today and I'm really getting these beds ready for fall, I'm going to do my full fertilizer routine. So in this first bed, I am going to actually sprinkle a little bit of the tomato tone in for my squashes that I have growing along the side here. And then in this spot where there's a lot of the dead material, this is where a lot of my lettuces and spinaches and things are going to be growing. So I'm actually going to put in some blood meal here. I have a thing of water here, and I'm going to take my 2 liquids of micronutrient, probably pouring in 2 ounces each to, I think that's a gallon of water. Now I'm just going to repeat that process with each one of my beds, depending on what that particular bed needs. So that's all there is to it. I'm going to fill up my watering can a couple more times with the micronutrients, get the rest of the beds with it, and I'm done fertilizing for the day. Actually, I'm done in the garden completely today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this encourages you to grow in your garden or in your balcony or in your apartment. Wherever you are, start your garden now. You can grow if you just have 15 minutes a day.